Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar on the prospects for biomethane on the route to a net zero future. We will wait a few more minutes till we have everybody in the webinar, and then I will officially greet everybody. So please bear with us 1 or 2 minutes. We just see that the numbers of the participants are rapidly rising. So we'll just hold it on for 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll head off. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar on scaling up biomethane on the pathway to a net zero future. My name is Christian Rakosch. I'm the president of the World Bioenergy Association. Our association is an international advocacy organization. We promote the sustainable use of bioenergy in all its forms, as bioenergy with solid fuels, bioenergy using liquid biofuels, and of course, bioenergy coming from the use of biogas. And I'm very happy to have a phenomenal number of speakers today to give you an update on what the role of biomethane can be on a pathway to net zero. Our first speaker is Paolo Franco. He is heading the International Energy Agency's Renewable Energy Division, and IEA has really published a landmark report with this net zero scenario that was presented. Paolo, what is the role of biomethane in this net zero scenario that the IEA has presented? Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Christian, and let me share my screen, hoping that everything works out technically. Let's see. Can you please confirm that you see the slides correctly?
We still don't see the presentation mode.
Okay. Is it coming? Because I have it on my screen.
No, it's not. Maybe you try again.
I try again.
Something is changing now, but it doesn't come up as in the presentation mode.
Hello, wait a second.
Maybe unshare and share again.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. I have it on my screen.
That's funny.
Yeah, sorry. I can do something else, which is to share the screen as it is, and then you will see also a few other things, but it should be fine.
Good.
Hello, wait a second. Sorry for that. We test, of course, in the test it worked out. That's clear.
No problem.
Here, the screen. let's screen here. Do you see it now?
We saw it. Yes. Now it is in the. It's now in the presenter's mode. So
okay.
You can see the next slide and your remarks. Bharadwaj, maybe you can kick in.
Yeah. So let's do something else. Can you put the PDF that you have, and then we will do it this way. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Let me try that from my end.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it visible?
That's perfect now.
Thank you. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it like that. Sorry for this glitch. Now, thank you very much for inviting me, the IEA, to give a very rapid overview of the role of biogas and biomethane in the net zero scenario. Next, please. My first point would be, we really are living in an unprecedented times. First, the crisis, which hit massively the demand of all energy demand and in renewables, in particular for bioenergy. But secondly, an unprecedented momentum in terms of country pledges toward zero emissions, 2030 targets by major economies like the US and European Union, largest stimulus packages in economic history, and of course the crucial COP26 meeting in Glasgow. And as it was mentioned in May, the IEA published a net zero emission roadmap, which is really a landmark report, giving some guidance of how a net zero emission can be reached. And as we speak, the new World Energy Outlook is being presented, which adds some more information to this net zero emission report that we did in May. Next, please. Now, the next slide, if you can, this one, perfectly, this one. First, going to net zero is really a revolution, not a minor change, is a paradigm shift in energy supply and use. First of all, energy efficiency. Our roadmap is one of economic growth. GDP expands by more than 2.5 times from here to 2050, and energy consumption in total goes down by 10%. So there is a clear decoupling due to energy efficiency. Second, a massive shift to renewables. Renewables today are less than 20% in total final consumption and primary energy consumption. It goes to more than 70% in 2050. The rest is a little bit of nuclear and of fossil fuels with carbon capture and storage. And the role of bioenergy is very important. Biogas, biomethane, bioenergy as a whole are a basic pillar of this transition, making up to 20% almost of total energy supply by 2020. Next, please. So going to biogases. First, electrification has an important role, very important role in this transition, but cannot do everything by itself. So the rest has to be low carbon fuels, either gaseous or liquid. And in the gases, there is a very important growing importance of biomethane. Now, as you can see from the graph, biogas and biomethane together expand by 7 times by 2050 from 2020 production levels, but biomethane expands even more quickly. By 2050, biomethane makes 60% of gaseous biofuels, up to 14% in 2020, thanks to its versatility and the compatibility with existing infrastructure. Combined, biogas and biomethane expand from less than 2% of gaseous fuel supply in 2020 to 19% by 2050. Next, please. What are the main uses of biomethane? Biomethane helps in decarbonizing all the hard-to-abate sectors, transport, industry, and buildings, in a rather how can I say, ecumenic way, but with a certain degree more in industry, as you can see in the graph by 2050. The decarbonization of industry is particularly hard. Now, overall, the demand grows to 8 exajoules. So this is more than 27 times from 2020 demand levels. Next, please. Now, these slides come from an older report, or special report of the World Energy Outlook on biogas and biomethane, and looks at the supply cost curves. The important point here to make is, first of all, the supplies vary by price and region, no wonder, but all regions have a significant biogas potential. Second, there is enough biogas resources in total to meet the net zero scenario at less than $15 per MMBTU or per gigajoule. In general, supplies across Asia are less expansive and volumes are larger. So for instance, China and India alone hold 20% of potential supply. But the important point is that even excluding the current pricing situation, which is a very exceptional moment, biomethane can be near competitiveness with natural gas in many developing economies in Asia. And of course, this competitiveness would be improved if there was a carbon price or if there was a value of a remuneration of the values of biomethane and biogas that are incorporated into the price. And please come to the next slide, which is of course very important. Now, as you know better than me, biogas and biomethane are providing a number of services which is not just energy. The problem is that some of them are not properly remunerated. First, I would hint on the angle of energy security. Domestic supply potential can help offset imports. This is very important for importing countries and provide a number of energy security services. Now, for example, we estimate that India could avoid up to 15% of natural gas imports by 2040, saving over $10 billion a year, according to our analysis in the outlook for biogas and biomethane. Second point is waste management. Biogas production often uses wastes such as municipal solid and liquid wastes or food industry wastes. These are an important point. Third, the greenhouse gas reductions. Very recently, the IEA published another important report on methane emission reduction. Biogas can reduce methane production and replace fossil fuels. So if, for example, putting a financial value on avoiding methane emissions would double the amount of biomethane competitive with natural gas at a carbon price of $50 per ton. Fourth point, fertilizers. Biogas digestate can be used as a fertilizer, helping to offset the production cost. Fifth, the economic and employment opportunities. Biogas facilities provide employment and economic opportunities, especially in rural areas. This is a very important topic for emerging economies like China, Indonesia, Asia, in India, for instance. And compatibility, of course, biomethane is fully compatible with the existing natural gas infrastructure. And this is a very important asset, in particular in the transition, and in particular also for integrating variable renewables and complementing variable renewables such as solar PV and wind in the power sector. The next point, next slide, please. Now, the tricky point is that all these benefits that I listed in my previous slides are often recognized, but not necessarily valued in a proper economic way. Now, what do we need from policies from IEA's perspective is three actions on three main pillars. The first is to look at sustainability. Sustainability of bioenergy has always been an issue with a focus on liquid biofuels. It is expanding and it is going to be very important in the future. The world needs to have agreed sustainability criteria, waste management protocols, greenhouse gas monitoring, and having certifications and possibly in third-party verification. This is very clearly a crucial point for investors. I would like to mention here that this is being discussed in the BioFuture Platform Clean Energy Ministerial Initiative, where we are starting a working group on sustainability right now. Second, on demand. The crucial point for governments is precisely to monetize the benefits and that we have mentioned before. And third, on the supply, there are a number of measures from fiscal benefits, developing technical standards, which are not yet widely agreed, fixing roadmaps, capacity targets. There are a number of policies that are crucially important to really unlock the potential of biogas and biomethane in the net zero. And this leads me to my concluding slides. Allow me a few conclusions on the net zero emission transition itself, and then the implications for biogas and biomethane. First, we should be clear that reaching net zero emissions globally by 2050 is a formidable goal, is a very daunting challenge, requiring an unprecedented transformation of how energy is produced, transported, and used. In the net zero roadmap, we made it clear that we have two main pillars. One is by 2030, so in this crucial decade, a massive deployment of all available clean and efficient energy technologies, and this absolutely definitely includes biogas and biomethane. And at the same time, boosting clean energy innovations for the solutions that will emerge from 2030 to 2050, where also here there is a massive role for bioenergy as a whole. Now, electrification makes a big chunk of this transition, but it's not enough. Low emission fuels in the form of biogases help to decarbonize the sectors where direct electrification is challenging. And as I said before, we have to recognize and value properly the many benefits of biogases. We have to look at competing uses of sustainability of feedstocks. Bioenergy remains a scarce resource, and sustainability discussion will just become hotter and hotter. And just to conclude, of course, we need urgent, strong, and credible policy action from governments and a better international cooperation, which is needed to attract the investment at the scale which is needed. I would, again, to emphasize and conclude here on raising the attention of the activities of the BioFuture Platform Initiative under the Clean Energy Ministerial. Thank you very much for the attention, and sorry for the technical glitch.
Thank you very much, Paolo. That was extremely interesting and very exciting. I mean, if you're now in the biogas sector, hearing about the 27-fold increase in the next couple of years is an amazing perspective. Let me ask you one more question, Paolo, because I think you have to head off to the presentation of the Global Energy Outlook. What kind of activities will IEA realize to help policymakers to design appropriate policies? Because obviously this is not a straightforward thing. You mentioned there are several aspects that need to be taken into account. Are you going to take an active role in promoting and supporting the use of biomethane and supporting national governments to implement the right strategies?
Allora, I would mention 3 lines of actions. One, you may be aware that the IEA systematically does in-depth reviews of country energy policies for its member countries. And actually, this has already started. So whenever it makes sense to promote biogas for infrastructural resource reasons, we already do and promote biogas within these ideas. The second is international collaboration. And as I mentioned, the IEA has the facilitator role and the coordinating role of the BioFuture platform. This is not just on biogas, it is more on the use of bioenergy for fuel, chemicals, and any kind of uses, but biogas has a major role to play there. So I definitely invite the association to follow the activities, and we have a BioFuture campaign, which is open to private stakeholders, where we would be very glad to have your association in being present. And the third, let's see what comes out of COP. COP has the ambition, in theory, to go beyond the country NDCs and to start a number of sectoral activities. If this comes, then obviously I would see an opportunity to having some sectoral activities that are relevant for biogas uses for instance, in transport or industry or buildings, and then the IEA would be happy and pleased to work in some way. These three main axes, I see concrete opportunities for us to foster biogases in the transition. Thank you.
Fantastic. Many thanks, Paolo. That was really very, very exciting to see this, what is going to come, and also the active role of IEA, I think, is really appreciated in this context, and the professionality of your organization is really phenomenal. You used to be supporting fossil fuel development. Now you're fully into the renewables. That's great news. Thank you very much. Now we're coming, sorry?
Thank you. Thanks to you. Many thanks.
Thank you. Now we are coming to the first panel discussion, and this panel discussion will allow us to look into the reality of bioenergy, biogas use in different contexts. We have representatives of the European Biogas Association, of the German Biogas Association, of the Indian Biogas Association, and also from the IEA Bioenergy Technology Collaboration Program. So to the presenters, let me just ask you to be brief. There are about 5 minutes per presenter here. And tell us, what is the status of biomethane use in your region? Where do you see the development going? What kind of policy intervention do you believe are necessary to make this happen, a 27-fold increase of biomethane use within the next 30 years? And as a first speaker, I would like to invite and welcome Susanne Pfluger. She is Secretary General of the European Biogas Association. Susanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today. Very interesting event. Just trying to share my screen at the same time. Why it's black? I don't see anything. I will try again.
That's the end of the slideshow. Maybe it's, you just need to.
True. Yeah. Maybe I will go first to that. Okay. True. Yeah. So now you should see my slide.
Not yet. You still have to share.
Okay.
Looks good. Still? Excellent. It's all there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And yes, thank you again. I fully agree with everything what the IEA was saying. I think some of the messages that Paolo was saying, I will repeat also in my presentation, but my focus is, of course, on Europe, as we are the European Biogas Association. And so I will tell a little bit about our messages, how biogas can help the EU to reach its objectives, like also, for example, the flagship initiative, climate neutrality by 2050. So this is the European Commission's graph about the European Green Deal, and it includes also lots of important objectives like transition to a circular economy, clean, reliable, affordable energy, sustainable transport, zero pollution Europe, and so on. So everything, all what we want to achieve, and I guess everybody agrees that these are good goals. And the great thing about this is that actually biomethane can help achieving basically all of them. So as we always underline what the IEA was also saying, biogas is not only about energy, it has multiple positive externalities contributing to the economic growth, to environmental friendly practices, social well-being, and also, of course, improved air and climate policies. So it is available and scalable now all over Europe. We produce currently in Europe around 200 terawatt hours of biogas and biomethane altogether. And we could realistically and sustainably increase to around 370 terawatt hours by 2030, which is more or less double as what we have now. And then by 2050, go to beyond 1,000 terawatt hours. So altogether, we could replace 30–40% of natural gas consumption in Europe. And then, of course, there will be green hydrogen and all that. on the way to get completely decarbonizing the gas supply in Europe. Then it also contributes to a just transition. Biomethane is one of the most affordable advanced biofuels. No big investments are needed to build new infrastructure or acquire new vessels or vehicles. So that's also a good thing, that also people with a low or medium income can also actually have an access to low carbon mobility and low carbon energy. It is also part of sustainable circular economy, using waste and residues in a very resource efficient way, while producing renewable energy and biofertilizers, and also recycling nutrients. And of course, it also reduces and mitigates emissions. So the European institutions will soon come up with the new legislation on methane emissions, for example. And it is already acknowledged in the methane strategy of the European Commission that biogas prevents methane emissions very, very efficiently from agriculture and waste management, very important. But also at the same time, of course, our industry is doing the maximum to minimize any methane leakage that might be coming out of the biogas production. So I just mentioned here a couple of the positive externalities. Of course, there are many of them. And yeah, in our view, of course, the EU and the world should not underestimate the role of biomethane. So that's our message. We cannot put all eggs in one basket and just wait that we have green hydrogen and electricity there. We will also need all other sustainable forms of energy. And biomethane is one of the most important little pieces in the whole puzzle of climate neutrality. So that was my opening message, and I look forward to an interesting panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Susanna. That was really setting the scene. And I would like to invite now Dirk Bonse. He's the head of the Department of Renewable Gases in the Fachverband Biogas in Germany. Germany is really one of the leading countries when it comes to widespread deployment of biogas. Where do you want to go to? Where are you right now? And how do you see the future in Germany? Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian. Yeah, I'm glad for having me. I will present to you today the way like we do it in Germany. Just need to start my screen, which should be happening now. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So what I will show you today is a short overview of who we are from the German Biogas Association, the status quo of biomethane production and the use in Germany, where it is based on, which legal frameworks are applicable. I'll show you two business examples and give a short summary and outlook.
Be sure that you make it in 5 minutes.
I'm pretty sure, because I will not explain every word on the slides,
That's
which
good.
you can see afterwards. So we are also member of the European Biogas Association and the World Bioenergy Association. We are representing more than 4,650 members, and we have a broad range of participants. Our goals are the definition of legal frameworks and guidelines, information exchange, knowledge transfer also to foreign countries. We have a very dedicated foreign department, and we are advocating on EU, national and regional levels. Here's a short look on how's the biomethane market currently presented in Germany. So as you can see, the biomethane feed-in is more or less, let's say, the same, but interestingly, the use for fuel dramatically raised actually from 2018 to 2019, and we are expecting in the coming months also a further raise. So basically you can see here that just 1,000 gigawatt hours from approximately 10,000 biomethane production gigawatt hours sorry, are represented in the transport sector. How is biomethane used in transport? So we have the form of bio-CNG, which is compressed biomethane for passenger cars and light vans. Here, it might be the case that due to a ban of all internal combustion engines, which is in planning, there's possibly no market anymore by 2035. But there's a market for Bioenergy, for liquefied biomethane, which is primarily used then for heavy goods transport, maritime or inland waterway traffic. And the new legislations here promise actually that something will go on. The legal framework is the Fit for 55 packet from the European Commission. And the main legislations that are then translated into national legislation is the Renewable Energy Directive, RED II, which is currently in revision, and the Clean Vehicle Directive for the transport sector. And the RED II is important because here we can actually see the greenhouse gas savings that are possible with substrates, for example, like manure. So we have here even negative greenhouse gas emissions because we avoid, by just dumping it under the sky, let's say, we avoid emissions, and therefore we can actually apply here for negative greenhouse gas emissions. And as you can see here, there are also values disaggregated, and the process chain is also considered. So how you store the digestate, for example, also transport is included, the cultivation, and so on. So the path then is firstly that you have to inject a quota to the national gas grid. And you can see here by 2030, it should be 2.6%. If one does not reach this, he can be penalized, and this will raise to 600 euros per ton CO2. Nowadays, a lot of new business model concepts actually emerge, not only because the EEG is out of sight. So many operators switch now to biomethane production. So you have the opportunity to sell the raw biogas for that matter, or if you have already have put it into biomethane, you can sell it directly, but then you are completely dependent, of course, from the market price and what the off-taker will give you. If you feed into the gas grid, you have at least to upgrade it to biomethane, depending on the grid. This is always a little bit different in the regions. And you get then, for example, a purchase agreement with a dealer. He can be in another location, and then the operator extracts by balance based on this purchase agreement, literally 100% biomethane, although it's from the practical side, only 1%, of course, from the grid at the moment. You can also run your own gas station, make it public, for example, and then you can trade actually your GHG emissions, only in that case, if you are the distributor of the fuel. A new trend in Germany is pooling of biogas methane plants. So several biogas plant operators join, and they serve then a central processing station, for example, into biomethane or even into Bio-C or LNG. An example from our president, Horst Seide, he, for example, has a biogas plant up the north in Germany, but he serves several gas stations throughout Germany. And this is where this imbalance calculating model then actually counts. And he earns 2 to 3 times higher revenues as by the gas station's sales itself when he trades with GHG emissions. Another project from Shell and Edeka. Edeka is maybe known as a supermarket chain. So they are now actually switching their complete fleet to 100% bioenergy, which is planned for 2023. And as you can see here, such a truck can reach up to 1,600 kilometers with these 2 tank fillings. So if I look further and draw a conclusion, the implementation of RED offers opportunities for biogas and biomethane, especially when we talk about manure, biogenic waste, and straw with, let's say, beneficial or good GHG emissions. The revision of Fit for 55 package into RED II is important, and here also the Clean Vehicle Directive. And as you can see here, it will be considered that the infrastructure for CNG, but also for LNG, needs to be improved in the countries. And yeah, we have some tools which we are currently discussing also with the new government here in Germany, so that the toll exemption, for example, will be extended, possibly by a CO2 component, which is expected. That vehicles and fleet conversion should be further promoted, and that also energy tax and trade regulations, especially EU-wide, are implemented. And biomethane is, of course, at the moment in direct competition with other options, electrical vehicles. Hence, the options need to be technology neutral and utilized where applicable now. And this is the discussion that everybody knows, maybe the well-to-wheel discussion or the tailpipe approach. Biomethane is more or less watched from well to wheel. We always have to fight for that. But interestingly, with electrical vehicles, this is not the case, because the complete production cycle, for example, for batteries, also their disposal is actually not considered, but this is considered for biomethane. So here we actually seek, for leverage. This is, a short glimpse on Germany. Also, I'm inviting you, of course, to our conventions digitally and also physically. And I'm waiting for your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Dirk, and quite amazing how things are developing in Germany. Now, the IEA mentioned that India will be one of the key producers of biogas in the future, and I'm very happy to introduce now Dr. Shukla. He is the president of the Indian Bioenergy Association. Dr. Shukla, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us from World Bioenergy Association. The presentations which have been made this morning at your end this afternoon in India, because we are afternoon here, are really very interesting, and they are something which really gives us a feel that the future of bioenergy as such, and biogas and bio-CNG in particular, is not bleak, because the 27 times increase in next 30 years are being projected by the International Energy Agency. Certainly, the governments have to make their policies, align their policies so that these goals and objectives set there are achieved. We here in India, from Indian Biogas Association, are always in touch with the government to see that the policies are made in such a manner that it becomes investment friendly. So some of the measures have been done here, like the offtake of the bio-CNG produced. Now the government of India, the public sector companies, oil marketing companies have announced their program. They call it Satat here. And in Satat, they say that 5,000 numbers of plants are going to be installed in 5 years. The program started in 2018. They have declared the price for purchase. Now, there are some glitches why it is not coming. That is what we from the association side are continuously having a discussion with the government, that what should be done, that the targets are achieved more than what they have been planned. So to us in Indian Biogas Association, appears that the business model for bioenergy as such and bio-CNG in particular is yet not conducive for the investments to come. Now, that what should be that business model? The problem remains that all the good aspects, as it has been discussed today also, that it has got 3 outputs. It gives energy, it gives fertilizer, and also it treats the waste. But all these investments which are going for energy generation and supply, for fertilization production and supply, and for the waste treatment. All the investments which any government is putting or any organization is putting, they are not added together. They are not summed up together. And that is how these three outputs, once they are seen from only one aspect, then it doesn't become economically viable venture. The gas alone cannot survive this sector because the 46 rupees, Indian rupees, which is declared here, the plants are not economically viable. And that is the reason the investments are not coming. Now, who should fund that? It's a $1 million question. Now, the societal sector, the three things which I mentioned, it is to be put under a societal sector in any government policy because the pollution abatement, waste treatment cannot be, and that too from the biomass waste, cannot be ignored and denied. It has to be done for the survival of the human race in a better manner, and that too in the urban areas. So if that is that, then the monetization, as it has been mentioned, we have done the monetization and written to Indian government. Now the monetization of that is to be recognized in the policy. It is not. Second is, now there is a confusion, big confusion. Now electricity is being promoted. I don't know by whom. Electricity, and the problem for solving the pollution problem globally, now it is thought that electricity and electricity-based systems and electric vehicles mobility is the answer. They do not tell that much of electricity, if everything becomes electrically mobile, where from it will come. That is not being talked of. And it has been mentioned that the batteries, the storage batteries, which are becoming defunct after some time, how we are going to take care of them, whether they are not going to pollute. So therefore, a balance in the international energy policy, which has not been there, somebody mentioned, International Energy Agency was very much supportive of the fossil fuels. I have been in the renewable energy, the whole of my career was in renewable energy in India and the government of India. I have seen that the policies for renewable, first they were not supportive, and after that, even today, they are not supportive for the bioenergy sector. They are not. Now, if we see that organic fertilizer, very good. Now, it is true that if the global productivity, farm productivity is to be sustained for fruits, vegetables, and grains, and oilseeds and whatnot, then the organic input cannot be denied anymore. Where from that organic input is going to come? And the bio-CNG, biogas plants are the best solution for that, economically. But then who will pay for the price of the organic fertilizer? The farmers, at least in India, their pockets are not that big. They cannot buy. And if they cannot buy, then who is going to pay? So these two things, the fertilizer and the energy, whatever price is fixed for the gas compared with the CNG in India, if these two are taken and the organic fertilizer, the farmers cannot buy, if that is taken and the pollution component is not internalized in the policies, in the supports, if these three things are not done, then how a business model, sustainable business model for the bioenergy and biogas sector is going to come? So these are the bare facts. Somebody has to pay for it. Either it becomes a societal sector. Let International Energy Agency say in very clear-cut terms that this bio-CNG sector is a must for the fertilizer, for the pollution treatment, pollution abatement, and for energy supply. And therefore, it is to be put under the societal sector programs and schemes of any government across the globe. And if that is done, then the governments will be bound to think that the policies are oriented towards that. So that is one thing which we feel from the Indian Biogas Association. We have to do it on a global platform. And if that is done from there, the things will trickle and the concerned governments are going to also take note of it and align their policies. So these are the real difficulties, because I have been in the field, I have been in the government side, and I'm seeing this side, and also being a farmer today, I cannot share my presentation. You know why? Because in my village, in my hometown where I'm sitting and speaking to you, electricity is out. It is not there. So my computer is off. I'm talking to you through your phone. Luckily it was charged. Otherwise I would have not been participating into it. So that is the situation, and it is the situation in India. Among the developed countries, we are developed country. So you talk of the African, other countries who are socially and economically still poor, how they can come pace with the requirement globally for reducing the pollution and net carbon zero. The other things, passing, it has been mentioned by one of the speakers today. Now we are the fuel. I call it that bio-CNG is also a space fuel. People are not talking. Let us talk from today onwards. Let us talk that bio-CNG is a space fuel. We can produce biohydrogen cheaper than solar and wind. The two options for the electricity based hydrogen production is being talked of. We are 2.5 times lesser, costlier. So the biohydrogen production, and once we produce biohydrogen and we produce hydrogen, then we become a space fuel. Now, all our space missions are having hydrogen as a fuel, mainly, other than the solar panels which are mounted. If they open, luckily they open. If they don't open, then the hydrogen becomes the only source of energy supply there in our missions. But then somebody has to invest. Oil sector, globally, it has been invested by governments. But this sector, bioenergy sector, nobody has invested. And in my childhood, everything was, there was no chemical fertilizer. We were having the organic food. Now, people ask for organic food. It is not available. What has happened? We have twisted the global policies and national policies for doing something which is really not good and ruining the whole sustainability in the world. Because if you have everything chemically based productions, for some time it is good. Ultimately, it is not good. So these are the issues. I am talking very frankly. I hope that it will not hurt any of the promoters of the concerned industries. It may be affected by some of my interventions. So thank you so much for giving the opportunity. For now, later on, I can intervene as the need arises.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Shukla. Very clear words on where the issues are and what needs to happen to really make this huge transformation become a reality, not just a vision or a scenario. That is really the challenge, and that is what our task is. Our task as associations is to push this forward and to explain that to policymakers that this is something that does not happen on its own. Now, the last speaker in this panel is Berend, and now I'm apologizing for not spelling your name properly, Freudenhill. He is task leader in the IEA Bioenergy task on gasification of biomass and waste. Berend, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, that's indeed my position. I work for TNO, but since the timing is short, I will dive in directly into gasification. So that's another route compared to anaerobic digestion is a thermal process going to a product gas, and that can be upgraded to substitute natural gas. And there basically is two approaches. There's a direct gasification approach where you burn part of your feedstock and the heat is converting the rest into a product gas. If you do it with air, you have a lot of nitrogen in your product. If you do it with oxygen, you get a product gas that you can upgrade to higher value products, and you always have a byproduct of char then. And there's a different approach, indirect gasification, where you use this char to combust in a separate reactor and transfer the heat, not directly, but indirectly via a solid medium like sand. And that is converting the feedstock into product gas. It's a separate gas outlet containing no nitrogen, and you can still combust the char with air. That's a big advantage of indirect gasification. And this is a starting point for many possible value chains. So I try to sketch a little bit what's out there, what can we deal with, and where is the technology at. If you look into biomasses, I divided them now on dry biomass, so that's forest and agricultural residues or demolition wood. Wet biomass is sludges and really the aquatic biomasses, and MSW is household waste containing both plastic and biomass. And then in here I put 3 major technologies, I would say, that are capable of doing this. The indirect and the direct gasification often are done in fluidized bed for a good temperature control, and supercritical gasification is going to high pressure and relatively high temperatures to go to a supercritical medium to convert feedstock into gas. And the supercritical typically is focusing on the wet biomass, where indirect and direct gasification can deal with the dry biomasses and the municipal solid waste streams. I put a scale on the other side also about the decarbonization potential, because in principle, all these technologies, if you go to methane, you are left with a stream of CO2, which has to be of a good quality. You take it out of a concentrated stream. And if you would sequestrate this, it would lead to negative emissions. And then that's an important factor taking into account when talking about SNG. On this slide, I put some projects and suppliers of technologies. It's not limited to this, there's more. Also promoters like Engie, France is very active in promoting SNG, both the anaerobic digestion and gasification approaches. And these reports, they describe some of the projects given here and technologies, and you can find them online. And I will discuss 2 projects which will explain or show where the technology is at. The Go by Gas project is in gasification circles, a well-known project in Sweden, in Gothenburg, where they built a relatively large 32 megawatt thermal plant producing about 20 megawatts SNG. And it was operated on biomass, and it showed for 12,000 hours the whole train going from feedstock, woody feedstock, to SNG injected into the grid. It demonstrated that it was working, and therefore I would say technically it was a success. This was a demonstration. The next phase would be a commercial plant, but unfortunately, the municipality of Gothenburg at that time decided to cancel the entire project because it wasn't making any money. Which is a pity, of course. But the main message here is that gasification, indirect gasification of biomass can be converted into SNG that can be injected into the grid. And another project which is currently in an advanced stage is the ABSL project in Swindon. It's a follow-up of the Go Green Gas, Advanced Biofuels Solutions Limited. I think it's at the bottom it says. And basically they take in waste. So municipal solid waste, they upgrade it to an RDF type of feedstock, and that's gasified, high temperature by a plasma in the end, which simplifies your gas cleaning and cooling. And then they use Vesta technology from Wood PLC to convert everything into SNG. And this plant, currently the construction of all the units is complete, and the commissioning is ongoing. And this is then the other feedstock, RDF or MSW, which I mentioned, which will be demonstrated to be converted into SNG. And going 2 slides back is maybe the SCW, the supplier of technology. That's a supercritical technology who are developing projects in the Netherlands, and they early this year they injected into the high gas grid, or the high pressure gas grid in the Netherlands, SNG. So they also demonstrated that the technology is ready to operate, and they are now in designing a larger scale plant which actually can make money instead of a demonstration phase. So my conclusions on SNG via gasification is that there's a whole list of technologies out there that can deal with, well, basically all the different types of biogenic waste streams. Technically, they are ready, and it's also a technology that allows you to go to large scale, up to 100 to 200 megawatts thermal input. And it has shown to inject SNG from this woody biomass and sludge into the grid, and hopefully next year also for the RDF case. And I think important, and that's also what Paolo was talking in the beginning, the net zero lookout. If you talk about the CO2 balance with gasification, you always have to upgrade your end product by removing CO2. And if possible, you should always include CCS to create negative emissions, which will really help to stabilize our climate. And the main challenges are, well, there are probably more, but the main challenges that I think are out there is that the governmental support with subsidies, etc., it's not consistent. It differs per country, so you get strange constructions sometimes. And also to have a technical feasible and economically feasible plans, you need to invest large sums of money, which is sometimes killing projects before they are built, unfortunately. And I think this is a challenge that we need to find solutions to. That was my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Berend. Very interesting, and you're showing a different route for producing biomethane, which is the thermal gasification, whereas most frequently it's anaerobic digestion that is considered to produce the biogas. So there are two quite entirely different approaches. And I guess it's fair to say that the thermal gasification is technologically much more challenging than the route through anaerobic digestion. Correct?
Yeah, it's technically a bit more challenging. It's also complementary to anaerobic digestion because you look at different feedstocks that cannot be digested, and it's also something that you can really scale up. So in the Netherlands, for instance, we have a target for 3 BCM based on anaerobic digestion, and the rest, at least a minimum of 7, that should come from gasification projects.
Yes, yes. Now we're coming to a short discussion. The time is already quite advanced. I would like to come back to the point that was mentioned by Dr. Shukla in India. Where is the business case? How do we establish a situation where there is a business case? And one of the colleagues in the chat also mentioned that this is not only an issue for India, it's an issue all over. And Berend, you have now also basically said the same thing. What we need is a consistent kind of a framework that allows biogas to become, or biomethane to become, a mainstream activity, economic activity that investors will be happy to invest in because it definitely makes sense. My question to you in the panel is this kind of consistent framework related to the price for CO2, or do you see the need to have subsidies for the investment because it's mainly the upfront investment that is the issue, or would you like to see I don't know, other policy measures like feed-in tariffs for putting the methane into the gas grid? What are the most beneficial policy measures that would really allow to create that business case? Let's go through it. Let's begin with Susanna from the European Biogas Association. What's your answer to this question? What kind of framework do we need?
Well, I think there are many things that we need, but also what is important is, of course, that, for example, policies are supportive, that they actually do see a long-term role for biogas in order to ensure investment security. Because we have, for example, now this at the European level, these discussions around taxonomy under the sustainable finance. And their biogas, for some reason, has got some sort of transitional role, even though we will need biogas also in the long term. We will need to reduce our methane emissions. We need to take care of our food waste and so on. So it has a long-term energy, but for some reason, it has got this stamped under being some sort of transitional energy. And it is not all the benefits that it brings have not been fully acknowledged, even though also the services of the European Commission themselves see that it is the energy source, the fuel that actually has the lowest emissions, the potential to reduce the emissions most, so even have negative emissions going beyond zero. So that's of course important, but then more practically, of course, yeah, we need to have a bigger value for fertilizers, maybe also some sort of quota to have more biofertilizers on the market, to have more demand for these fertilizers. Subsidies are needed as long as the renewable gas cannot compete on the level playing field with natural gas, so higher CO2 price, of course, is important. But yeah, I think there are several things we need. We need more demand, also some sort of, we see that in countries where they have national targets for biomethane, like in France, for example, it is going very well. It's booming the market. We would need also at the European level a target for renewable gas. So these are some that I think more, maybe Dirk and others can go more into details, but just some messages from the European level.
Yeah, I mean, what you're mentioning, the kind of reluctance to embrace biogas or other forms of bioenergy is something that we observe throughout the Fit for 55 package. It's something we find extremely concerning. It is something that is being pushed by mainly environmental organizations that are financed to a good part from US sources. For whatever reason, we don't know, but it is kind of obvious that there is a strong push to push back the most important contribution to the energy transition, which is going to be bioenergy. I was just informed that Paolo is still in the room. Paolo. Did you also experience this kind of pushback to bioenergy in the International Energy Agency? Have you been kind of cautious to not put too much weight on bioenergy because of this criticism of bioenergy through environmental organizations?
I have not a push within the IEA. The pushback is outside the IEA. We came public with a market report in 2018 saying bioenergy is really the forgotten giant of renewables. We speak of all the rest and not of bioenergy, and this makes no sense. Then the pushback is from a very polarized discussion on sustainability aspect. We should be clear that sustainability issues exist. They should be looked at. Some are very unfortunate when it comes to deforestation of primary forests in tropical countries. Some others are less relevant, or let's say I see more the possibility to find a consensus. To some extent, we reflect these strong discussions in our net zero roadmap. Please note that among the IPCC scenarios for 1.5, the IEA has the lowest amount of bioenergy consumption of all the other scenarios. It is still very important, 100 exajoules, so it is still a crucial pillar of the transition, but it is less than others. And we think the way forward at this point is to really get together, even with the critics, and try to find at least some parts where we can have consensus. So just a no-brainer. If you are using waste and you use it well, and this is one of the advantages of biogas, of course, this is obviously a no-brainer, and then we should eliminate this from this polarized discussion. What I observe is that starting with one example, many criticisms and even newspapers then make a general equation that all bioenergy is bad, not speaking about feedstocks, not speaking about technology conversion, not speaking about the things, and then this is the kind of pushback that we see.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Thank you. That was a very important addition. I think an issue that we need to really pay attention to. Now, Dirk, looking at Germany, what is the policy measures you want to see in Germany? What are you pushing for as a biogas association?
Well, basically, we are striving for eliminating competition distortion, especially when it comes to the competition or to compete with electric vehicles, for example. So we think electricity in transport should be regarded the same like it is the production pathway of biomethane, where actually you start from growing plants, let's say. They suck in CO2, for example, until several production steps, even transport, for example, also, of course, with biomethane in that case. So that actually the same approach is being applied to electrical vehicles. And we also see some, some contradictions in the different legislations. So if we look, for example, in the RED II with the different options for greenhouse gas emissions, it's not quite clear in Germany, for example, which substrates are eligible for that. So the EU actually made, you know, the first step. But then in Germany, for example, it was interpreted a little bit different. So this needs to be resolved actually from the German point of view. The direction is good, the direction is not bad. And also it's, you need to understand, it's a very, very regional and local phenomenon. So it's actually regional, regional value chains and also the sector coupling, you know, with feedstock, for example, until you use the digestates again to grow new plants, for example. So these are the effects that are already happening in Germany. And so the industry and the people are ready. So now the policy has to follow. And of course, we have now a problem in Germany. We just have a new, we does not have yet a new government. So there are hard discussions. And throughout the political parties, there are a lot of differing opinions. And as now we have a kind of scattered party landscape, let's say, this will also maybe be contradictory to good way ahead, let's say.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This brings us,
sorry, I really need to leave.
Okay,
my apologies, but I thank you
Paolo.
again for a very good discussion. I had to listen at some point with two things together, but thank you a lot. And many of the points that was also raised by our Indian colleagues and other in the chat are very valid. I mean, so please continue these good discussions and we will be happy to collaborate in some form.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. We'll come now to the second panel. I would like to ask the persons of the second panel to activate their camera so we can see you. The second panel is a panel of companies. We have now heard the view of the associations. Now we're looking at the view of the companies. How do you see the future of biomethane, the future of biogas from your perspective as entrepreneurs? And I would like to welcome, first of all, Mette Smedgaard Hansen. She's head of regulatory affairs of Nature Energy. Mette, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christian. I'll just share my screen. Just a second. Do you see my presentation now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's one of my colleagues on the screen now. So, but thank you for the possibility to give this presentation at the WBA webinar, and I'll start my 5 minutes now. The three given resources on Earth are sun, wind, and biowaste. So with almost 8 billion mouths to feed every day, no matter what they're eating, there will be biowaste. And from that, we can produce green gas and green fertilizer. Nature Energy is one of the largest producers of biogas or biomethane because we upgrade the biogas to biomethane into the Danish gas grid. As you can see at the screen now, we have built it. We own and operate these 12 large-scale biogas plants. 11 of them are in Denmark. The last one is in France. And more is in the pipeline, both in Denmark and in France. And also we're looking for other countries right now, like the Netherlands and the US. Last year, we turned a little more than 3.5 million tons of bio-waste into green biomethane. That corresponds with almost 25% of the Danish produced biomethane. And we see a large or a huge potential of the global plan. We have made some analysis showing that we need almost 2,000 biogas plants or biomethane plants in the North America, 2,000 Europe, and 7,000 in Asia. That's the part of the world where we have calculated. And for now, as I remember, we have a few hundred plants producing biomethane in the world, so the potential is very big. And to give you a little idea of what we mean when we say large-scale biogas plants, this is one of our plants, Nature Energy Korsbro. It has been operated for 2 years now, and this is our idea of a standardized size with a capacity up to 1 million ton of bio-waste per year. A pretty nice plant, if you ask me. So this is our way of moving forward. I just talk you through it. You have the circle at the left side of the slide, where we managed to connect the agricultural sector, the food industry, and the biological waste handling. And with that, we create green gas and the green fertilizer. The upgraded biogas is 60% in the lower part of the screen, is sent into the gas grid, but also the remaining 40% of CO2 will come into use in the near future, like CCE, like methanization as shown. You can see at the screen, that's just one example. You can have the wind turbines producing power, and with that you make hydrogen and compare it with the CO2, meaning that we can have even more methane into the gas grid. That's one example, but you can also capture the CO2 as CCS or use it for methanol production or all kind of new PTX products that may come. As you can see at the right part of this presentation, for now we use it for industry or for house heating the houses or CNG, LNG. But maybe in the future we can also make jet fuels. What we make is green hydrocarbons, and you can use it for everything. So it's just like you can even make building bricks or something like that. So what we think to bring down the cost and being able to produce this without subsidy is these keywords for Nature Energy. We need a portfolio of almost similar biogas plants operated with a centralized competence center for logistics, biology, finance, and every other competence that we can have central. We also need a standardized design as shown at the right part, so that the plants must be like building bricks or modules that we can put together. At least standardized per country, because there are differences in biomasses and legislation from country to country, so at least standardized per country. And then we have great belief that we can create new products like customized fertilizer, biochar, PCX products, jet fuels, or green carbons. Only our fantasy will be the limit for what we can make with these green carbon connections. But we believe that we will see the same development for biomethane as we have the world is seeing for wind energy and solar energy. They have underwent development where now they can act almost subsidy-free. So we're quite optimistic that maybe in 10 years or things like that, these products can help us also act subsidy-free. So that's what my 5 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mette. A very interesting view on how, I mean, you could also call, would you call what you're doing industrialized biomethane production?
Yes, very much, because we are professional operator of these in the way that is operated in the companies separated from the agriculture.
Yes, yes. I would like to welcome now the next speaker. It's Gwenel Le Fournier. I'm sorry, I don't speak French. Please correct me. You are working in the solid waste and landfill department of Veolia. Please go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. It's fine. It's perfect.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon to all the attendees. So I'm Gwenaël Le Fournis, glad to present you Veolia's vision on biogas and biomethane. First of all, for those who aren't familiar with our company, Veolia is a worldwide actor managing environmental services, deeply embedded in ecological matters through the delivery of environmental services to people. We strongly act in order to improve our overall ecological footprint and the one of our clients, including climate change. So I won't review in detail all the figures of our company. However, what is important to understand is that either talking about waste management, wastewater management, or energy, we have potentially organic feedstock, biogas, and biomethane everywhere. Talking about biogas, we also, as Nature Energy, a long history with biogas, producing something like 6 terawatt-hours of gas per year in more than 20 countries, from our municipal or industrial wastewater treatment plants, from our bio-waste anaerobic digestion plants, and last but not the least, today, our solid waste landfill. As of today, biogas is mostly converted into electricity and more marginally into biomethane, only 4% more or less. So this is a result of a long history where technologies, regulation, and so on were more in favor of electricity generation. So only 4%. But we think that the situation, we believe that the situation will change soon. Why? Our colleagues already mentioned the why and how. We can have some examples to understand. First, in France, as mentioned, the government enforced a few years ago an incentive mechanism quite efficient, which helped developing a large number of projects. As you can see on the right chart, the principle is based on a modulation of tariff based on the activity sectors, based on the size of the plant, thus addressing the scale effect, addressing a technological constraint or market constraint, such as by-product management or feedstock access. As of today, the ambition of the feed-in tariff is under review in order to adjust it to the trajectories, national trajectories, ambitions. And in the case of Veolia, this tariff helped promoting the conversion of plants from electricity to biomethane in our landfills. So for a long time ago, we had a large number of plants producing electricity with gas engines. And progressively, you can see on the chart, the green curve increasing in the coming years, where we will produce with the same amount of waste or less waste even, we will produce more energy through the conversion of biogas into biomethane. Quite interesting. Apart from governmental action, we work with a large number of private actors, private and public actors. And what we can observe is that a large number of actors, many customers want to decarbonize their business, really. Many energy companies willing to deliver carbon neutral services or energies to their clients. And one of the advantages of the biomethane is the stability of the price in the long term. And this allows to work on PPA-like contracts, PPA, which is power purchase agreement, long-term contracts agreement with our partners to allow to afford the delivery of biomethane. So this is a reality coming up. In the end, to conclude, a few takeaway considerations. So when we, in a very heterogeneous world and changing panorama, we have to be permanently watchful of the market. We also have to first consider existing sources of gas of the landfills, where organic waste was disposed and still produce gas that we could recover and convert into biomethane. And also, we said the access to the feedstock is very key in biodigestion projects. So we have to be very aware of this accessibility topic. So that's all for my part. So I hope you enjoyed.
We enjoyed that very much. Thank you very much. That was very, very interesting to see how such a huge company as Veolia is engaging in this, and how gradually the more typical use of biogas for electricity generation is kind of merging into producing biomethane instead, which reduces, of course, the energy losses very much and allows for a multiple use. Great. So we have two more short presentations. One is from Giuseppe Perrone, the head of biomethane project at Eni. Giuseppe, welcome.
Good morning. I ask you if you can help me, because in the test session before I didn't succeed in put the full screen. Okay.
It works perfectly well.
Thank you very much.
Perfectly well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you before for the opportunity to show in this forum any strategy of biomethane. Next, please. Okay, Eni has decided to get in biomethane station following two main paths. There is duties, because of course we have constraints, and then we have tried to look even some chance, some opportunity. The duties, of course, came from the law. We must be compliant with the European law and from Italian law. Following Italian law in particular, we are obliged, because we sell gasoline and diesel, we are obliged to sell even biomethane advanced. And then we have to buy or to produce, make or buy as usual. And then if we do not, we have to pay a fee, the fee that is used to pay the producer of biomethane. Then we have decided to become a producer of biomethane. But biomethane from which is the sort, which is the sort of biomethane? In Italy, we have a lot of plants that produce biogas. Why? Because in Italy there was a law that gives a fee to the producer because the electricity that comes from the biogas is considered a green, and then there is a fee. And then a lot of Italian company decided to produce biogas, but the fee is not forever. The fee was only for 15 years. And then you see in the box, in 2027, the fee will last. And then all these producers are thinking, what I have to do with biogas? And then we talk with them and try to swap for the biogas into biomethane. This is for us a good chance. Then we are present in biofuel market because I don't know if you know, but we have 2 biorefineries that produce biodiesel in Venice and the Sicily, in the south part of Sicily, in Gela. Then we are present in the market. Another chance is that we have a lot of petrol stations that today sell natural gas that could become biomethane, of course. Then the last chance is that we have a lot of areas that are degraded. It could be, of course, in this area arrives the gas grid, and then virtually we can bring the biomethane there, and there to build a plant for liquefaction of biomethane, creating, of course, LNG. Next, please. In this slide, I could try to spend some few minutes about environmental aspects, because as my colleague said before, biomethane could give a huge decrease on GNG, because the use of biomethane have 25% less of CO2 emission, 50% less of nitrogen oxides. There is absence of sensitive power, and of course it doesn't generate emission of toxic and carcinogenic compounds. Then on the box on the right, I have produced a slide from IPCC in which we can see that a good part of GNG emission comes from agriculture, from forest, and then it makes sense to have as a feed this product, so we can help the general decarbonization. In the box on the left and on the right, I've produced two important slides that repeat what Mr. Dirk Bons before said in the presentation. That is to say that if we try to look at the problem with a well-to-will path, we can see that, especially in the manure, you see in the middle, in the manure number 5, CO2 emission, if the biomethane is produced by the manure, practically it could be compared with hydrogen and e-mobility. But this must be clear that comes only from a well-to-will analysis, because of course, if we put our nose in the back of the car and then with an analysis only tank to will, of course, the electricity will win every time. And in the other box, in the box on the left, we can see the medium of the median, all the car, all the trucks, and so on. But the same analysis has been done with the Fiat Panda, with only car. This car is fed with benzina, con gasoline, with GPL, with metano, and with electric. And you see again that if the biomethane is 10%, practically is compared with the electric one. Next, please. Then an overview of Italian market. We have a natural gas demand of 1.2 billion. cubic meters. There are more or less 1 million of vehicle powered with methanol, with methanol, natural gas. 92,000 of trucks, more or less 1,040 petrol station, 2,000 biogas that are the plant that I showed you before. There is a grid of 40 kilometers and a storage of 19 billion of metric cubic. Any share, this is of course in general, any share has 100 selling point that sold nowadays more or less 40 millions of cubic meters. And we have a project to build from now to 2024 48 more plant, more selling point. This is for CNG, but we are engaged even in LNG point. Now we have only 7 points, and in the future we think to go to 33 selling point. Nowadays, any share have a 5% of the whole market. Next, please. Now I show you the way in which Eni is going to produce biomethane. As I said before, in Italy now I have 2,000 of plant that are generally divided inside agriculture as a feed, agriculture and FORSU, that is the organic matter from selective collection. In the first slide, we show how we engage the producer. We can buy the biogas product from the anaerobic digestion, then we build the upgrader, and then we inject the biomethane inside the line, inside the pipeline. The second way is to buy even the company, 10% share. Otherwise, we can leave a percentage to the actual owner of the company. Next, please. Or we, when you see green, it's a green field, or otherwise we can buy a project, that then a plant that is not operating, but maybe as the authorization or is going to be ready to build, but it is not ready. The others in the bottom of the slide, the same, but a plant that produces FORSU, that is feed with organic matters. In this case, we do not try to be alone, but we need to share the property with generally a company that operate in the world of wastes. And the last one is sometimes always together with another company. We participate to tender to get the project. That's all.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Thank you also for explaining the different approaches to the business models that you're offering. And obviously, from the background of your company, you're very much focused on using biomethane in transport, which has also been emphasized by our colleagues in Germany. Now we're coming to the last presenter, Ferro Lefebvre. He has been member of the board of WBA, of the World Bioenergy Association, for years. And Ferro, you have been instrumental in setting this up because you are now working with Enagas in the market and strategy department. The floor is yours, and I would like to thank you at this point in time also very much for setting up this extremely interesting set of speakers that we had in our event today. Ferro, the floor is yours.
Well, firstly, thank you, Christian, as well for the WA's role in pulling this together, because yeah, I agree, it's been a really excellent panel. Can you see my presentation okay?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so this is what I would like to cover in the next 5 minutes or so. So I'll be looking mainly at the kind of global context, but also mentioning Spain where it becomes relevant at certain points. So just a few words about Enagas for those of you who don't know us. We are Spain's gas TSO, the technical manager of the gas system there. And we own and operate gas transmission pipelines, LNG terminals, and gas storage facilities. We have a very strong commitment to decarbonization, and renewable gases are a big part of our future business. So we have around 50 renewable gas projects in development, both low carbon hydrogen and biomethane. And we believe, therefore, that the infrastructures we own and operate are important in growing the market for these gases, but also in terms of helping and enabling the energy transition. So just moving forward. Now, looking at the big picture, if we're going to reach net zero, we're going to need a transformation of the energy system. So looking at the left-hand side pie chart, we see that within this context, electrification will grow. I think that's accepted. But there's also a consensus, whether it's looking at long-term analysis from Spain at an EU level or globally, shown in the pie chart. This is the IEA's net zero analysis. The role for direct electrification could be about half of final energy demand. So that leaves an important role, of course, for the fuels and technologies that can enable the rest of the energy transition. Because we can't electrify everything. So there is an important role for low carbon gases. Now, whether that's biomethane that we're talking about today, low carbon hydrogen, or natural gas with CCUS. Now, looking at the right-hand side, in such a low-carbon scenario, of course, the contribution of natural gas will gradually decline with time, but we would expect a big part of those volumes to be offset by low-carbon gases. So there is a 25-time increase between now and 2050 in this particular outlook in terms of their energy content. So we're still going to need the infrastructures to transport and store these, therefore providing the security and flexibility of the energy system. And then the final point I'd like to make on this slide is basically there is no golden bullet to reach net zero. So if we look at the right-hand side column, we can see there's low carbon hydrogen there, but there's also biomethane there. So it's not one or the other. We certainly need both. Moving to the next slide. So biomethane is a circular economy solution, and it can deliver multiple benefits. Now Paolo already touched on these, so I won't labor the point, but of course we're talking here a low carbon energy source that's completely compatible with existing gas infrastructures. Moving on to, it can of course reduce the methane emissions from the feedstocks decomposition if you just did nothing. Of course, agriculture is actually the largest source of anthropogenic methane emissions. Waste is the second. So it's a very logical connection to see biogas and biomethane as a solution in this area. And of course, methane is very much under the spotlight at the moment. For example, the global methane pledge recently announced between the US and the EU. And I just wanted to touch on rural development as well. So biogas is one of the renewable technologies that delivers the most jobs per euro or dollar invested. And from a Spanish context, rural development is a really key issue. So the depopulation of rural areas is very high on the government's priority list. However, again, as Paolo mentioned, a lot of these wider benefits are difficult to, or they're not monetized by the producer. So there's a clear need for effective policies and market design, which I'll touch on in the next slide. A bit about our role in biogas, biomethane. We have 20 projects in development with different project partners. And a key factor we are looking at is where sustainable waste and residue feedstocks are located close to gas network infrastructures that allow us, of course, to inject within those and therefore decouple the need for the energy demand, the off-taker, to be next to the feedstock supply, which of course is not always the case. So by using networks to transport the biomethane, we of course have a lot wider market access. Just coming on to the next slide on policies. To grow a biomethane industry, there's not one policy that's going to do it. So a complete framework of policy measures is needed. and that needs to cover the whole value chain. So moving from measures to boost sustainable feedstock supply. So this could be, for example, waste management policies. In the EU, the separate collection of bio-wastes by 2023 would certainly be a good example there. Things like setting targets and quotas for the contribution of renewable gases or injection of these in the gas network, as it's been established in France, is another good example. But if we look at all the markets that are growing, so whether that's the US, whether that's UK, Italy, France, there is always at the current time some kind of subsidy either on the production or consumption side. So that's something to bear in mind at the current time. Now, looking at the graph, we can see here that France, which has established a full package of these measures, has grown the capacity of biomethane plants sevenfold since 2016. So we can see the very positive impact that's had. It can be done. Spain is a little earlier in that journey. It's currently consulting on its biogas roadmap, but that contains over 40 measures, which would hope to boost this sector. Just touching on the technical considerations to do with gas networks. So although biomethane is methane, of course, it's fully compatible. That doesn't mean you don't need careful planning. So of course, facilitating connections in areas where there's good feedstock availability. It was also touched on maybe kind of cooperative shared upgrading and injection facilities between producers to enable economies of scale and ensuring the correct flows of the gas. So in certain areas, if you were to have a lot of production in an area because there's feedstocks, but low offtake, for example, in the summertime, you could have a reverse flow of the gas situation, and that needs to be correctly engineered. On the demand side, system of guarantees of origin is very important to balance the volumes produced and also those consumed, and especially when injected into the gas network. Spain has just released the kind of legal framework to produce guarantees of origin for renewable gases. And actually Enagas, in its role as the technical operator of the gas system, will initially be producing these. So just to have a few conclusions, Enagas is at the forefront of development of renewable gases. We see biomethane and low carbon hydrogen as important parts of our future business. Because decarbonization of the energy system has an important role for these gases, but also that needs the infrastructures to transport and store them. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is already here with us now. So we already have it. Biomethane production represents a circular economy solution, which of course has all these very important wider benefits for society and the environment. However, we're only going to realize these with effective policies. And that needs to go from enabling feedstock resources to stimulating the investment in production, and also to ensuring competitiveness with alternatives, especially higher carbon alternatives. And finally, certainly upgrading of biomethane and pipeline injection, we believe offers a much wider market access than just using biogas in the local area, because it decouples the need for the consumers to be located next to the feedstock. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for Ferro. You mentioned something that that was not mentioned so far, but I believe will play a critical role, and that is the certificates of origin. If you want to really disseminate biogas to those consumers that want to be carbon neutral, for example, and many corporations are looking for that, you need to somehow be able to make sure that obviously getting the physical biogas, but there should be a watertight system of certificates of origin that allows to trade this probably also across borders. Now you're mentioning you have that in Spain. Are there debates about establishing such a system overall in Europe?
Is a question for me? Yeah, so I agree, very important for a couple of reasons. So first of all, obviously at the very current time, we have very elevated gas prices, so it's not quite the case, but generally, there will be a cost premium for biomethane production over natural gas. So if anyone's going to pay a premium and report that for their environmental, social, and governance purposes, they would want to be able to demonstrate it with that guarantee of origin. And also for credibility in terms of weighing up the making sure the balance is checked. There's no double claiming. Just to clarify, Spain doesn't quite have them yet. It's just launching now the legislation to do that. But from an EU level, there was a requirement to introduce guarantees of origin for this year, I believe, for that to be transposed into national legislation. So this very much would be helpful if it's a pan-European approach. And also there's momentum here, because it's not just biomethane. There's, of course, there's a huge amount of interest in low carbon hydrogen. And the issue of guarantees of origin is perhaps even more relevant for hydrogen, because for biomethane, we know it's renewable at the outset. For hydrogen, of course, there are more different variations of production pathways with different carbon intensities. So certainly yes to a pan-European approach. There's already some movement in this area. There's a ERGAR registry, which has recently been tracking some transactions, I believe, between the UK and the Netherlands for the transfer and sale of renewable gases. So to answer your question, I think, yes, this is an EU requirement to produce these guarantees of origin. There's certainly strong momentum to do so from biomethane and hydrogen, and there's already some steps being taken to produce these.
Right. Gwenel, would you like to add to that?
No, the answer was quite complete. So we agree that a guarantee of origin will be a very useful tool to demonstrate the the renewable origin of the gas, and to track it through down to the final customer. So very useful tool. Yeah.
Yes. I think we need to wrap this up. We have been exceeding a little bit our time, but basically we've been staying in the time. I would like to thank all the presenters here for giving us a very, very round overview of what is going on in the biogas field from the different points of views, from the point of view of the International Energy Agency, the point of view of the biogas associations, and also of the big operators that see this as a future for their business. I think this is very encouraging. We're looking for a bright future for biogas, and I think that became quite clear in the context of this webinar. Let me, to finish this off, invite you all to become a member of the World Bioenergy Association. We are really looking to increase our membership. We are now having a regular series of webinars that are extremely interesting and bring you to the top of what is going on in the different fields of bioenergy. And we also have a number of other services. So please feel free to contact us, become our members, join us in our effort to bring bioenergy to make a significant contribution to a decarbonized society in 2050. Thank you all for participating. Have a nice day. Goodbye.